Thanks for staying with Real America. My next guest is running for the 13th Congressional District in her home state of Florida, and she's taking on Charlie Crist. You'll recall he's the former Republican governor there who jumped ship and became a Democrat after a failed Senate run. I want to welcome our guest now, Anna Paulina Luna. Anna, welcome to Real America. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on.
First, before we get started, I want to say thank you for your service. You're an Air Force vet, right?
Correct. Correct. Air Force all the way.
That's right. Aim high. I am as well, but I think I probably served way before you. All right, let's get right after it. You shocked a lot of people in your district because I'm pretty sure from what I read, they thought the other guy was going to take that one home and that he'd be a better matchup against Charlie, and you smoked him. You got a big portion of the vote. Talk about your race up to the primary, and then we'll get to going after Mr. Crist.
Absolutely. It was a very, very contested primary. I think that everyone knows, especially living here, that Charlie is definitely vulnerable in 2020, and that, I was able to not only outwork people, but the thing is about Republicans is that Democrats like to say we're so terrible at the grassroots fundraising. Well, I not only raised over 1.1 million on small dollar donations, but that was during COVID as well. So you can understand that, going forward and moving with the entire election, I mean, there was a lot of real, I think, obstacles that we had to get through, and we were able to do it. So it was exciting.
Wow. You raised over $1 million for the primary.
Yes, and that was more money than AOC ever raised during her primary and general election on small dollar donations.
So funny you bring that up. My staff kept saying online, people are calling her the AOC for the Republican Party. I think you seem a bit brighter, but we won't go there. We won't, unless she wants to come on the show. I'd love to see both you two beside me debating. That would be great. You and AOC going at it.
You might get C-SPAN, so we'll see.
Let's talk about this this race for you against Charlie. So for folks that don't recall, he was a Republican. He was the governor. He quits. He tries to run for Senate down there. Marco Rubio beats him, and he feels all upset that the Republicans didn't back him, so he switches party to Democrats. Now he's an incumbent, and like you said, it looks like, especially in 2020, he's in trouble. Tell us why the folks of Florida, you think, are going to go for you instead of the incumbent Charlie Crist.
Politics and what Donald Trump, I think, showed the rest of the country is that, you have people who've been in office for 30, 40, 44 years in Biden's case, and they really have nothing to show for it. And I think Charlie is a prime example of that. For someone who's been all parties, has really, I think, been the number 1 or 2 spender in the entire state of Florida in regards to putting our country into a deficit, and really has lost touch with, I think, what the younger generation needs, i.e. my generation, millennials, Gen Z, but also, too, with how we communicate. I mean, ultimately, this is about Washington insiders versus the American people, regardless of party affiliation. And what I'm finding is because I am not from D.C., because I'm an Air Force veteran, and have, I think, really proven to a lot of people that this is about service before self. That is the stark contrast that exists between Charlie and myself. And so he's really going to have to work for it if he wants to keep this seat. I happen to be in a district that's one of the highest veteran populations in the country, where I think over 25% of the district is veteran, and it is a historically Republican seat. So Charlie might have been able to win this, really, I think, in a special instance, but he's not going to be able to keep it, that's for sure.
By the way, I know you probably can't see it, but we're running your commercial where you're literally running in the streets, shooting guns, seeing your old Air Force pictures. I love those. I have all of those in my office, the boot camp pictures, the training camp pictures. God, we looked good back then, didn't we? Although that was only a few years ago for you. Here's what I find interesting, and I want to drive this home for folks out there that might be watching the show that are still on the fence. I look at Kim Klacik in Baltimore. I look at you. I look at these candidates that are running on the Republican ticket. There are more females, there are more minorities that are Republicans running for the House and the Senate than on the Democrat side. And if that, folks out there, doesn't tell you something about the parties and where they stand, I don't know what else to tell you. Your thoughts on kind of busting that narrative, because if you listen to the mainstream media and leaders like Pelosi and everybody else, they're the party of acceptance and tolerance and minorities and everything else, when they just put up an old 70-some-year-old guy that's made racist comments for 30-some years for president, and we have people like you running who are minorities and females.
Yeah, the Democrat Party exists because of identity politics. They really do suppress minority entrepreneurship. You'll see that as a whole, their messaging is based on hate and division, whereas within the Republican Party, it's the exact opposite. And I really do, for as much as social media can be a big pain in the butt sometimes, I'm glad that I have it, because it's allowed me to self-educate, to share my message directly with people instead of having to go through the mainstream media. And I will say that people like Kim K, people like myself, I mean, we're shattering stereotypes, and if we weren't threats to them, they wouldn't be suppressing us. And so we have an uphill battle, but this is again about people over government. And I do believe that we'll prevail. I do believe that people are waking up, and I do believe that 2020 will be a solid, secure win for the Republican Party as a whole.
I love it. If I was in Florida, I'd be voting for you in a heartbeat. Anna, Paulina, Luna, you're running for the 13th Congressional District down in Florida. Best of luck to you. If we've got time and you have time, maybe we'll have you back on before the election. But good luck. Keep the fight.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead on Real America, he's an actor, a model, and yes, folks, a conservative in Hollywood. Antonio Sabato Jr. joining Real America to talk about his new studio that's doing things a little different than the norm in Tinseltown.